now available in paperback and e-readers. Esteem Horror in the Hamptons. The aspiring angel tries to escape a house of horrors in this action-packed, all-new Esteem series adventure. Get your copy of Esteem Horror in the Hamptons in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Better get the coleslaw, y'all, cause we're having us a barbecue. Former CNN host Angela Rye was in tears as she confessed that Black America isn't listening to her or any of the bootlicks that she's currently working with right now.
They also dragged the me for being a Democratic shield. I think all I'm saying
Those
is
people are nuts.
But I can't keep saying everybody's nuts.
They're nuts if they're saying you're a shield for the Democrats.
But I think, Tiff, that's their perspective. Yeah. And I think everything that's a different perspective isn't nuts. Like sometimes when people are so hurt and damaged, they go and do the other extreme thing, and it is not okay, and it's not cool, but it doesn't just happen politically. And I think it is irresponsible. Like, fine, you guys didn't like the video. Cool. That's not the point. If we're only talking to ourselves, that little bubble is going to continue to shrink until we suffocate. We can say that it needed to be a legitimate source. Had stuff to say about when a Washington Post article came out about Black people in Detroit not wanting to vote for Joe Biden and potentially voting for Donald Trump. When the uncommitted option came out, there were 100,000 plus people that voted uncommitted. This is a real issue.
In a state
so
that
if
we
people
lost by
take
8,000
issue with
votes.
how we cover it, then find another option. Even if, Tip, if you think something is nonsense, or Andrew, you think I could have found a better source, let's find that instead of being like, I'm not going to cover it. That's how we end up losing engagement.
Now, Angela Rye was crying as she was on her new podcast that she was hosting with former CNN host Tiffany Cross and Andrew Gillum. And Angela Rye was crying because she was not being heard by many of the Black masses, and she was upset because most Black people are not listening to anything that she has to say. Now, the reason why most Black people aren't listening to Angela Rye basically is because people want the real McCoy, and they're not willing to accept an imitation Black media when there's an actual new Black media out here. And the big problem with Angela Rye, Tiffany Cross, and Andrew Gillum is that these individuals basically, they have spent so many years going out here and parroting whatever their paymasters at CNN or the Blue Party want them to say, that they don't understand that what you did on mainstream media in telling people what you wanted your white bosses to hear is not going to be the thing that allows you to have an impact on a social media platform, because on social media platforms, you have to go out here and be your authentic self. Now, when it comes to Angela Rye, she doesn't know how to be her authentic self because she spent so many years out here being a bootlick and spending so many years being a bootlick. She only knows how to go out here and say whatever people at companies like CNN tell her to say, and doesn't have any voice of her own. Now, when it comes to Angela Rye, she doesn't have a voice of her own because she's used to being told what to say by the bosses at CNN and how to say it. So that makes it where anything she says comes across as disingenuous, and that's the main reason nobody's tuning into her new podcast, because there's nothing genuine that Angela Rye has to say. And most people, when they look at her, they just see her as imitation Black media filled with artificial flavors, colors, and preserves, and it's just not as good as authentic new Black media. New Black media produced by new Black media creators like the Radical Sister, like Mad Black 80, Mr. Superboy, Professor Black Truth, and people like Chris and Company, and many others like Jason Black and Tariq Nasheed, we know what real new black media is, and real new black media isn't what's being produced on Angela Rye's show. And for all the fancy sets and all the connections to mainstream media, people know the real deal, and they're not looking to go out here and accept a substitute that looks and sounds like new black media, and they want the real, authentic new black media with an actual message that resonates with black people. Now, when it comes to Angela Rye, she's crying in an effort to get sympathy from people who don't care, and we have no reason to care about Angela Rye because Angela Rye was down with the lies of CNN and was down with the lies of CNN to the point where she basically was down with them and supporting their narratives and their platform until they let her go. And Angela Rye, basically, one of the reasons why she's crying is not only because nobody's listening to her in the black community, but she's also crying because she knows that she doesn't have any support in the black community. And because she doesn't have any support in the black community, she knows that she's basically useless to the media arm of white supremacy, and she cannot go out here and return to the media arm of white supremacy because there's no way she can get another job, because the reason why she had that job at CNN was because they wanted her to be the mouthpiece to parrot the information to the black masses, and since the black masses aren't listening to her, she's basically outlived her usefulness. And now that she's in this wilderness, wandering, trying to find her way, and trying to adapt to a changing media platform, what's happening to Angela Rye is the same thing that happened to Roland Martin. She's learning the hard way that when it comes to black people, they're not really concerned with anything she has to say on these platforms that she's on right now on social media. Basically, she has no credibility whatsoever, like Roland Martin, and nobody's listening to her because we already know that anything that comes out of her mouth is complete BS, because anything that she has on her platform is not about going out here and presenting us with an authentic message to foundational black Americans of black empowerment. No, anything that Angela Rye would say on her podcast is all about her looking to try to audition for her next job, and her looking to go out here and find that next job with that next media platform. That's all Angela Rye is doing on this podcast with Tiffany Cross and Andrew Gillum. Again, these bootlicks basically have outlived their usefulness, and they're now been tossed back into the black community. And now that they've been tossed back into the black community, they want to try to make it where they want us to believe that she's still got some sort of relevance. But Angela Rye really is now reading the room and seeing that she doesn't have any relevance at all anymore, because nobody's watching this podcast the same way folks wasn't watching Roland Martin on YouTube. And when Roland Martin realized that black people weren't watching his YouTube, this is where he started to get angry. This is where he started to get profane. And on the flip side, what we're seeing with Angela Rye is that she's going out here with the extra salty tears, hoping that extra salty tears will get her some sympathy, but all she's getting is indifference from most of us foundational black Americans, because we see the game, and since we see the game, we're not really concerned with what happens to this bootlick who is learning the hard way like Roland Martin did. Well, the thing that Professor Black Truth has told us that happens to these bootlicks is that bootlick is a job without a retirement plan, and sadly, Angela Rye is learning that without that retirement plan, life is just getting that much harder, because she now knows that she cannot fall back on the black audience by making her own show, and she can't fall back on the black audience because the black audience basically sees her for the disingenuous bootlick that she is, and black folks aren't looking to go out here and support this knockoff new black media, this imitation black media. No, people can get the real thing on YouTube from YouTubers who have been out here producing content like I have, going out here producing content for years. I mean, I have been out here on these on the new black media platforms with my own authentic voice as far back as about 2008 or so, and I have had my own blog, Sean James Black Freelance Writer, back then, and that blog got big because I had my own style of writing, had my own voice, and had my own style and voice focused on a mission of black empowerment from those days, because it goes back to my days in the 90s, even before the internet got big. I had always had a mission to go out here and create positive stories about the black experience. Always wanted to go out here as part of my mission to diversify the black book market, and I've always been talking about black issues on my blog way back, as far back as, again, 2007, 2008, and continued to build momentum to the point where I had 2 million hits on that blog, and it was a very popular blog. And as I had peaked with blogging, I decided to come over to YouTube. I had a YouTube channel far back as 2008, but I never really wanted to use it too much because I just didn't have my voice just yet. But as time went on, around 2013, I started going out here and speaking to people because I wanted to get more book sales and I wanted to reach more people. I mean, I have been out here for years, and again, cultivating my voice and cultivating my content, and it comes from my passion and my heart, and that's something that Angela Rye and Tiffany Cross and Andrew Gillum don't have. Angela Rye, Tiffany Cross, and Andrew Gillum don't have that, and that's why their black media is imitation black media, and people don't want an imitation when they can get the real thing, and that's the thing that Angela Rye doesn't understand. Yeah, your podcast ain't catching on because your podcast isn't authentic like the content that I and many others, like the African Diaspora Channel and Phil Scott of the Advice Show, create, along with the other YouTubers I've mentioned, like Mr. Superboy and Mad Black 80 and Jason Black and Tariq and Radical Sister. I mean, people create real, authentic content, and again, real, authentic content that has a voice, has a message, and basically shows you the bigger picture, like Mr. Chris does on his radio show, Chris and Company. I mean, all these people on social media have stronger voices, and you just can't go out here thinking you can rely on the brand name you established on white media platforms and hope that's going to get you an audience with black people on social media. That's where Angela Rye got it twisted. I mean, she's hoping that people would hear her, but nobody hears her because we know that she's full of it. We know that her message is inauthentic. We know that they're there just to make this podcast as a temporary thing, hoping to get the attention of all of those white supremacists, hoping to get the attention of the media arm of white supremacy, and hoping that this will lead to them being able to prove to all of those people at these mainstream cable news networks that she can be trusted to go out here and parrot the messages, and hope that this will help her get her next job and her next show. But that's not going to happen, because what happens with these media platforms is they cycle through these individuals, and they cycle through these individuals on the regular. They cycle through these individuals because, when it comes to these individuals, what happens is that they always can find another black bootlick to go out here and parrot whatever message they want to be told. So these people are replaceable like cogs in a machine, and once they finish going out and having these people say what they want said, they can go out here and find themselves another group of individuals for the next news cycle, and have those parrots basically and puppets go out here and say what they want said, they can go out here and find themselves another puppet and leave you out in the lurch, which is what Roland Martin is in right now. And Tiffany Cross and Angela Rye and Andrew Gillum, they've outlived their usefulness, and now these bootlicks, what they want to do is come back to the black community, talking about how real and how black they are. I mean, that's what we see on this podcast, an effort to try to show how authentic black they are. Same thing that Candace Owens is doing. Basically, white supremacy has finished with these bootlicks, and now that they're finished, they realize that they have no real voice, and again, have no real voice because they never cultivated a voice, don't know how to cultivate and curate content. I mean, again, being a content creator is a skill, and it's a skill because you have to know what kind of content is going to engage the viewer. And unfortunately, when it comes to these individuals, they don't know how to cultivate or curate content that will allow them to build an audience. They think they can just go out here and just talk about topics like the Blue Party and be a Blue Party mouthpiece. But the whole thing is, people don't care about Blue Party mouthpieces. They don't care about the flash of celebrity. No, people want authentic content that comes from the passion and the heart of the individuals who create that content. And that's something that Angela Rye has shown us that she can't create, because if you're crying on your show about not being heard, you really don't belong on a podcast. You really don't belong on YouTube. Again, people who can create content are people who have a voice, people who have a passion, people who can go out here and speak and let themselves be heard. That's something I had to learn how to develop, and I had to learn it after years of being silent. I just fell and lost my voice many years ago, but I started to rediscover my voice around 2013. And as I rediscovered my voice, I understand that, again, you can't go out here and think, oh, I've got a brand name. Well, what are you saying to people? Critical question I would like to ask Angela Rye. You say you want to be heard by black people. Well, what are you saying to black people to make black people care? Again, goes back to what I learned about screenwriting, that third critical question a screenwriter has to answer, and that is, why should we care? I mean, why should I care about what Angela Rye has to say that I haven't heard from another bootlick that they basically inserted? The white supremacists has inserted their hand in their backsides. I mean, why should I care about what you have to say when all you know how to say is what people tell you to say, and haven't cultivated and curated a voice of your own and cultivated a voice that's distinct about yourself? I mean, that's the whole situation with Angela Rye. Again, what we see here is another black bootlick showing us that they're not qualified for this job. Again, a black bootlick basically placed in this position because they are just black and not there because they know how to speak or how to talk to people, because they have nothing authentic to say to us. And because they have nothing authentic to say to us, we have no real reason to hear anything that they've got to say. And this is the main reason why Angela Rye's ratings are in the crapper. And she can go out here and cry all she wants, but she gets no sympathy from a black audience that she basically didn't care about until they decided to give her wake-up call. I mean, she didn't care about black people until she was put back in the black masses, and now that she can't be the mouthpiece for looking to lead people, nobody cares about her. And this is the reason why she's upset. She's upset because she knows her time is up, and she knows her career is basically over at this point as related to broadcast media, because nobody wants an inauthentic experience as related to new black media. When it comes to new black media, people want the real thing, not an imitation. Now, if you want to pick up some of my positive black fiction and support new black media that presents a positive image of black people in literature, you can pick up the books on the SJS Direct imprint, like the ISIS series, the Steam series, the John Haynes series, the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, my black vampire novel Eternal Night, my black sorority novel The Thetas, or many of my men's issues books. You can find all those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them at other online booksellers like Draft the Digital, Google Play, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, and Target. And shout out to Mr. Chris from Chris & Company for sending me this story, and shout out to the African Diaspora channel for presenting this footage so that I can make a commentary about it under fair use. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Isis, Dark Incubus. The goddess next door gets enthralled in a romantic entanglement with an evil incubus in this all-new Isis series adventure. Get your copy of Isis, Dark Incubus in paperback and e-readers today. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.